thought there was no way out. Yeah, I used to be scared of the light, and I was swallowed by doubt. I'd forgotten what freedom was like. Puzzle pieces on the floor, they don't fit in anymore. I'm changing, I'm changing. When they ask you who I am, what I've done and where I've been, there's one thing I want you to say. Tell 'em I'm brave, see it on my face. I am bigger than anything coming my way. It's a new day, now I'm not afraid. So if anyone asks you how I overcame, you can tell 'em I'm brave. Some days I come out on top, and some days I can't catch a break. But when the fire don't stop, I won't wish my troubles away. I've been down and I've been up, but if you look at me now, I'm moving into better, brighter days. Yeah, this hope is here to stay. There's only one thing you can say. Tell 'em I'm brave, see it on my face. I am bigger than anything coming my way. It's a new day, now I'm not afraid. So if anyone asks you how I overcame, you can tell 'em I'm brave. We're gonna fight, gonna be alright. We're gonna fight together every step of the way. Tell 'em we're brave, see it on our face. We are bigger than anything coming our way. It's a new day, we're not afraid. So if anyone asks you how we overcame, you can tell 'em we're brave. You can tell 'em we're brave. You can tell 'em we're brave.
Storytelling saves lives. And today we are in the business of uplifting hope, healing, and lived experiences. Welcome to This Is My Brave, the show, CharMeck 2026. My name is Ebony Roe, and I am the Senior Health Program Manager for the Office of Violence Prevention with Mecklenburg County Public Health. Our office consists of Community Violence Prevention and the RECAST program, which stands for Resiliency in Communities After Stress and Trauma. Our mission is to help build a safer and more resilient Mecklenburg. And today we are doing just that through the art of storytelling. In 2011, a woman named Jennifer Marshall started a blog to share her experiences of living with bipolar disorder and navigating life and motherhood. Her blog was originally anonymous because she was afraid of being judged for her diagnosis. She heard from others who read the blog that her story helped them to feel free. Fast forward, she began This Is My Brave, a nonprofit dedicated to helping communities create these artistic storytelling events to reduce stigma of mental health and elevate the voices of those who are thriving in the midst of challenges. This is the third time CharMeck has hosted This Is My Brave. We are so grateful for our local leaders who have been supportive of this show, and we're grateful for the presence of Dr. Kimberly Scott, who is our interim public health director, for her leadership, guidance, and trust. We would also like to thank our 2-year platinum sponsor, Alliance Health, our gold sponsors, NAMI Charlotte and Amara Wellness, our silver sponsor, the Compassionate Companion, and thank you so much to all of the other donors and in-kind sponsors. Without your support, we would not be here today, so we thank you so much. A very, very big thank you to our production team members. Can we have all of our production team members stand for a round of applause, please? Although you were not here for all of the hard work and dedication that it took in the background to get us to where we are today, I cannot tell you in words how much these people have worked so diligently to get us to where we are, to uplift voices. They are people and volunteers from our community. They are nonprofit owners and small business owners. They are videographers. They are mental health specialists. They are people with lived experience. We are from all over our community, and their voices have come together to help us be able to bring this show to light. So we are very grateful for your hard work and diligence in bringing this here. And finally, we would not be here today without the amazing voices of our storytellers here on this stage. It is your courage that has brought us here today. And through your voice, we hope to again create a world when people don't have to be brave to share their stories. Thank you. On for the show.
Y'all, 4 little words. I lost my son. I lost him. And no, he is not misplaced like that favorite pen I laid somewhere, or like missing the back of an earring when I'm rushing to get ready. I lost my son. 4 words that make it sound as if it's something that I did. Words that make it seem like if I looked for him, he might possibly be found. So I looked, and I find him in the picture frames placed with care around my home. I find him in the flutter of the cardinals that visit my backyard. I find him in the sweet, sweet face of the son that he left behind. And I find him in the recesses of my heart, scattered among the pieces that broke when I lost him. To gun violence. My son Sam was 23 years old. But in my search for Sam, in my search for clarity, my search for peace, there were some other things that I found. I found strength I didn't know I had. Courage that shows up in the right place at the right time. I found compassion to walk alongside others looking for who or what they lost. And I found the resilience to be standing here today among the stage with this cast of extraordinary individuals who are armed with stories that bind our collective conscience and instill hope that carries beyond these walls. As co-director for CharMeck 2026, This Is My Brave, my name is Sylvia Stitt Smith. Thank you. I I'd like to ask you all to join me in welcoming to the stage, whose voice you'll hear again, co-director Becky Roe. Thank you.
My name is Becky Roe, and in 2024, I had the honor of serving as the mental health show director for This Is My Brave. But tonight, or should I say this afternoon, I'm not only standing here as a director, I'm standing here as a mother who once sat in silence, trying to make sense of a word that would change everything: autism. I remember the early days clearly, the confusion, the questions, the fear that no one prepares you for. Because when my son was diagnosed, no one handed me a roadmap. There was no step-by-step guide. No one pulled me to a side and said, "You're going to be okay." What I got instead was uncertainty and a whole lot of misunderstanding. I had to learn quickly that the world doesn't always know how to make space for what it doesn't understand. And neither did I at first. I knew my son was brilliant, I knew he was capable, and I knew that his diagnosis didn't define his destiny. So I decided I was not going to let confusion turn into limitation. I was not going to let silence turn into invisibility. And I was not going to let fear write my story. So I started speaking. I started learning. I started showing up in rooms that weren't built for us. And little by little, those rooms started to change. What began as a mother searching for answers turned into a mission. That mission became Let's Talk About It, the Autism Center, where I now serve as the founder and executive director, working to support families, educate communities, and create spaces where individuals on the spectrum are not just accepted, but truly understood. And today I stand here not just as a mother, but as an advocate, an educator, and a woman on assignment. And while I'm proud of the work, the growth, and the impact, what grounds me the most is this: my son is thriving, not because the world suddenly got it right, but because we refused to believe it had to stay wrong. And that's why tonight matters, because every single person you are about to hear from has made the same decision: to not stay silent, to not shrink, to not allow their story to be told by someone else. Sylvia and I had the privilege of walking alongside these incredible storytellers, helping them shape, refine, and own their truth. And what they are about to give you is not just storytelling, it is courage, it is healing, and it is freedom. Coming to the stage is Dionne Hunter.
As we rode in the back of the police car, I watched street lights reflect across the windows. They reminded me of shooting stars. So I closed my eyes and made a wish. And then I asked, "Where's my mama?" There was a long pause, and then one of the police officers turned, looked through the mesh that separated us, and said, "Don't worry, she'll be back soon." But Mama never came. Then I was told that God needed another angel by his side. All I could think was, I need my mama more than God. But I didn't say it. I swallowed it like children do. Telling myself that it was all just a bad dream. I'm gonna wake up. You just wait and see. But days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to years, and from that nightmare, I could never escape. That night, I lost safety, security, the place where I could go to fall apart and go back to be mended. So I began to search for love. Staying too long in the wrong arms. Confusing attention for affection. Trying to build myself into something unbreakable. The perfect sister, the stellar employee, the flawless wife and mother. Because I believe that if I could be enough for everyone else, my own void would be filled. But my trauma didn't disappear because I chose to ignore it. It fed off my insecurities and it multiplied. Then, when the weight of trying to be everything to everyone became too great, I collapsed. Then I did something brave. I asked for help. Counseling, support groups, strangers at first, then lifelines. They reminded me that just surviving isn't the same thing as living. Then I started to learn to focus on me, not selfishly, lovingly. And then something incredible happened. That little girl from the back of the police car reappeared. Whispering that same prayer from so many years ago. Mama, please open your eyes. Mama, please don't leave me. Mama, if you ever really loved me, don't let this be goodbye. But this time, I was there to comfort her. I looked into her eyes and said, "Baby girl, Mama did not abandon you. You were just praying for a miracle that could not be fulfilled." Then I hugged her. I stroked her hair. I finally stopped trying to silence her pain because I realized that we are built from tears that were wept but never wasted. Yes, I will always miss my mother. But now I understand that that little girl that is still inside of me does not need saving. She needs support. And this is my brave. And my name is Dionne Hunter. Let us now welcome our next brave storyteller to the stage, Kelly R. Little.
Imagine being told your whole life that real men don't cry, that pain is weakness, and that silence is strength. Now imagine carrying that silence until it's unbreakable. For years, I fought my invisible battles with anger, anxiety, PTSD, depression, and trauma. Behind the success, hidden behind the leadership, and behind the I'm fine. I remember hearing the following as a little boy: man up. But I feel fake when the world expects me to be superhuman, especially when I'm carrying the weight of the world like Atlas, who was cursed to carry that burden. Even in moments of victory, I always heard this resounding whisper inside me: why is it abnormal for me to feel balanced and not operate in my power? Because strength on the outside does not equate to peace on the inside. So I walked in my journey to manhood. I mastered the performance of the leadership, the providing, the protecting, and the persevering, instead of walking also with the reflecting, the sharing, the protecting, and the restoration, while hiding behind the invisible mask of manhood. Like so many men, I was silently struggling, feeling unseen, and fighting just to feel relevant. Not because I speak less, not because I feel less, but because I was taught to armor up long before I was ever taught how to open up. My training started early. I can remember when I was 15 years old, riding on a train in Philadelphia, going to school. The subway was packed. People were shoulder to shoulder. Suddenly, I could feel this surreal experience. Everything slowing down before time stopped. As everyone exited the train, I witnessed a man. He said, "I can't take this anymore." And so he ran to the other side of the track and attempted to jump in front of the train, but was stopped. And I remember thinking in that moment that my visceral reaction, which was this numbing experience of seeing this often way too much. But I remembered I had already been conditioned through the television, through the radio, through society, that this was a normal feeling. And growing up, I saw so many things that no child should have to ever see. People getting beat up, people shot, people stabbed. And one thing remained blatantly clear, and the message was always the same: shake it off, man up, and don't let anyone see it affect you. Then I became a man and a father. I vividly remember sitting in a doctor's office holding both my children, one in 2001 and one in 2003. And during their birth, which should have been one of the moments in my life where not only was I present, not only was I proud or ready, even though I had never seen or met my own father, I had these thoughts of, was I prepared for this task? And so we know that the role of a father is to affirm and provide guidance. But every question in the room on that day was oriented to the mother who was in pain. Instead of giving the instructions to me, giving the concerns to me, because my job was to protect in that moment. So I was very angry, but I realized something. Even in what should have been one of the most precious moments of my life, I was expected to stay strong in the background, but not fully be seen. Then came the military. Deployment after deployments, explosions, rockets, violence, death, war, sleepless nights, moments that changed me forever. But the expectation was always the same. Stay strong, man up, complete the mission. And I did, because that's what warriors do. But what people didn't see is what comes home with you, the nightmares, the flashbacks, the panic attacks, the empty seats where friends used to be, friends we didn't just lose in war, but friends we lost to suicide. And no one taught me how to process that, because most of my life I was taught one thing: don't feel it, just carry it. Near the end of my military career, something powerful happened. I saw it. Strong men, disciplined warriors, they started expressing truths that I had buried for years. I'm scared, I don't know how to be a father, and I don't know how to talk about my pain. And in that moment, I realized something that changed my life. I wasn't broken. I was part of a silent brotherhood of men programmed to be strong before we were ever taught how to heal. That realization transcended time. I saw leaders who needed support, who were wounded and emotionally exhausted. I saw myself in every one of them, still waiting to be heard, still waiting to be told that you don't have to carry this alone. So I made a decision. I would no longer just man up. It was time to open up. And that decision didn't just change my perspective, it gave other men permission to change. So I took my story, I took my silence, I took my questions and my pain, and I built something bigger than myself. I founded the Urban Institute for Strengthening Families, a brave space for men to belong and become whole. And as I opened up, another man breathed again. I'm Kelly Little, and this is my brave. Please welcome the next brave storyteller to the stage, Eleanor Shell.
I spent most of my life building towards a life I couldn't quite picture, but I ached for. A call, a place to serve, a community where my work mattered. And slowly and almost unbelievably, it happened. I found myself doing work that felt faithful to who God called me to be, work that served people and work that built the kind of world I wanted my children to live in. Knowing that pressure washing a building is as important as painting a mural, because making a community beautiful and making it livable both matter. And then there was my family, married at 39, after waiting and praying and wondering if it would ever happen. And I got a husband who brought into my life the things money can't buy: steadiness, tenderness, laughter, and partnership. And then motherhood came. At 40 and 42, and then to everyone's surprise, our miraculous girl arrived at 46. The miracle we didn't know we needed. A life I could have never engineered. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And it was better than I ever could imagine. And I was excited to see where it would go. And then in an instant, a second, a moment so brief it's hard to make sense of it, everything changed. I was crossing the street, pushing a stroller like mothers do every day. And out of nowhere, I saw a flicker, just out of the corner of my eye, just at the edge of it, coming so fast. And my body registered it before my mind could name it. And I did what a mother heart does. I pushed that stroller hard to protect my child. My child was spared, but I was not. When I first woke up, I said, my head hurts right here. And it's hurt there every day since. MTBI. They called it mild, but life disagreed. And later, the diagnosis caught up. Traumatic brain injury. A world where my strengths weren't there anymore and my weaknesses seemed to be amplified. A world where the brain that I depended on, the brain that made me, did not work in the way it used to. A world where the very chemistry inside me shifted. Suddenly, my heart and my head were no longer my own. And as disoriented as it wasn't just the pain. It was the absence. Because the hope that had sustained me through all the hard chapters before was gone. And I didn't know how to get it back. I thought hope was something you just had, something you could summon. That if you tried hard enough, if you prayed hard enough, if you optimized hard enough. But life changed, and my brain changed, and the days stretched longer than anyone ever expected. People around me couldn't really see it. They loved me, but they didn't know the darkness that was inside, eating me alive. And I tried to protect them, because I was afraid if I let it out, it would swallow them too. But every morning I had 3 little lights waking up in my house. And every night I had 3 little lives that I was responsible to tuck into bed. So I kept moving. Doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment. Questions after questions without answers. Challenge after challenges and disappointment after disappointment. And I was exhausted. Not just because it was hard, but because I had always been the fixer. And now my life felt like one impossible hurdle after the next with no clear solution. My grit could not fix this. My discipline could not outwork it. My can-do attitude could not outplan it. The only way forward was time and healing and slow, deliberate work. And then something happened that I didn't expect. People I had known my whole life and people who I had known briefly, people who I hadn't talked to in years, people who could have easily forgotten me showed up. Communities once a blip on my radar stepped in towards me in big and small ways. And without saying the words, they were saying this thing to me: we will hope for you. And that's when I changed the way I understood recovery and mental health. Sometimes you don't find the hope by digging deeper into yourself. Sometimes it's external. Sometimes hope is communal. Sometimes you borrow it, freely given, until you can carry it again on your own. And that's what I called borrowed hope. Borrowed hope is a practical love, the kind that doesn't fix anything, but helps you breathe. and it saved me. My name is Eleanor Shell, and this is my brave. Our next brave storyteller is Sunnee D.
Most people think bravery looks loud, like victory speeches, like standing ovations, like somebody who's always know where they were going to make it. But sometimes bravery looks like getting on a plane with a broken heart and no idea who you're going to be when you land. My name is Sunnee, and they named me Sunnee not on paper, but in my spirit. My mama called me Sunnee. My family called me Sunnee. Everybody calls me Sunnee because joy followed me like rays of sunshine, because love leaked out of me, because I poured into people like my cup never ran dry. I loved giving. I loved people. I loved making sure everybody was okay, even when I wasn't. I was 16 when my chest whispered before my ears ever heard. Something's wrong with my mama. No cell phone, one pay phone, too many people waiting. So I waited too. My aunt picked me up that day. She said, "Your mother had a heart attack." A heart attack? My mama don't get sick. In the hospital, she told me she was fine. She said she was coming home. She said, "Don't mind those machines." And I believed her because my mother never lied to me. Christmas was coming. She told me to pick out whatever I wanted, and I didn't hesitate. December 19th, my mama lied to me. She died. I remember her face, still, solemn, the last time I saw her eyes open, the last time I felt that invisible cord between mother and child pull tight, then disappear. But I kept going. I did everything she told me to do. Finished school, bought the house. I did life right. And I buried the pain so deep, I forgot it still had a pulse. Because I was still Sunnee, still smiling, still pouring into everyone else, until one day I was empty. Sunnee had a secret, a friend nobody knew I was that close to. A little pour in the morning, another after work, one more at night when sleep wouldn't come. 2 big bottles a week, at home, alone, laughing in public, breaking in private. And nobody knew because I was fine until I wasn't. I made a call and I told the truth out loud. If I don't get help today, I won't get help. And somebody listened. And the next day I was on a plane. I knew I was going to California. I just didn't know where I was going in my life. And somewhere over the clouds, my phone died. So I turned to the man sitting next to me and I asked politely, "Sir, can I use your charger for a minute?" He looked at me and said no. Kept his phone on the charger, plugged in for the entire 6-hour flight. And in that moment, I thought, wow, even when you're on your way to healing, people still refuse to share their power. I landed with nothing but my name. And I sat there and waited until someone held it up for me. The place was beautiful, But that's not what changed me. What changed me was realizing how empty I had become. I was trying to pour from a toxic cup, one with nothing good left in it. I sounded okay. I looked okay, but I was still hurting me. And there they cared. They clothed me, fed me, and held me. Y'all, I hadn't had a hug in 4 months. They ran me daily bubble baths in a big jacuzzi tub. They poured in me, reminded me of who I was when I had forgotten. And for the first time in a long time, Sunnee felt filled. I learned everybody you call a friend ain't your friend. Some people want you broken so they can feel better about themselves. But I survived. I came home, and along the way, I realized something. All those years, I thought being strong meant never breaking, but sometimes strength is admitting you did. I'm here, I'm smiling, I'm still Sunnee. Not because I've never fallen, but because I chose to get up. I am Sunnee, and this is my brave. Can you please help me welcome our next storyteller, Miss Tawanna Wilson.
Back in 1990s, the road was dim. I lived inside a secret world where hope was growing thin. A closet hitter, chasing lights with strangers in the night, not knowing that addiction was a sickness, not a fight. I didn't know the language of disease that takes control. I only knew the emptiness that echoed in my soul. I thought if I confessed it all, my pain would simply cease. So I gathered up my courage and told my family in peace. I thought the truth would fix it like a switch turned off somehow. But little did I understand the path before me now. For truth was just the doorway to a deeper kind of plea. The night I dropped upon my knees and whispered desperately, God, help me, please. I'm drowning and I cannot stand alone. And somewhere in that brokenness, a tiny seed was sown. I walked into my first meeting, nervous, scared, and shy, but something in that room felt like the answer to my cry. The laughter and the honesty, the courage in each share showed me that recovery was breathing in the air. I carried that small hope with me as I began to grow, and soon life placed a blessing that would help my spirit glow. Becoming someone's mother changed the way I saw the day. Those little eyes reminded me there had to be a way to live with dignity, a way to walk in grace, a way to build a better life in addiction's place. I learned to say I'm powerless, words simple yet so true, and suddenly the world began to look completely new. In 1993, I claimed a victory of my own, my high school equivalency, a seed of hope full grown. In rooms with healing taking place, I listened and I learned. For every step of honesty, a brighter future burned. Recovery showing me life was more than just surviving. It was waking up each morning knowing hope was still arriving. I volunteered with gratitude, returning what I could, believing service to our neighbors served a greater good. A cosmetology license soon rested in my hand, another piece of proof that I could build the life I planned. Life was far from perfect, but the blessings were still clear. Each challenge that I faced, shaping courage year by year. The things that I accomplished were never mine alone. They were gifts of grace and mercy from the seeds that had been sown. For a while, I beat myself up for the roads I walked before, for every harmful choice that led me to addiction's door. So one day I forgave myself and laid that weight down aside, then lifted up my head and walked in humble pride. Life tested me again. 11 years ago one day, a stroke tried to silence all the words I had to say. But even in that battle, hope refused to disappear. I rose again, a survivor, stronger year by year. As founder of an organization that works with families and youth, armed with certifications and experience that help others to reboot. And I'm still reaching higher with the dream I'm working through. Community health worker graduation coming soon. And yet another blessing on the 29th of March, ordained as a minister beneath the Creator's arch. For every trial, error, and valley I've passed through, the Creator shaped a purpose in everything I knew. The pain became a teacher, the struggle forged my voice, and standing in that calling now is more than just a choice. Because the woman once in closets, chasing shadows in the night, now walks with faith and stands with courage in the morning light. My name is Tawanna Wilson, and this is My Brave. Let us welcome the next brave storyteller, Miss Meeka Clark.
You must be 18 years or older. That's the first line many adoptees hear when we're finally allowed to ask questions about where we come from. Then the reunification journey begins. My journey began at 18, when I decided to find my biological family. I remember my social worker sitting down and explaining the process to me, and then she gave me a fair warning. She told me that this process would not be easy, and that my biological family might not want to be found, nor contacted. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I really don't want to disturb my parents, the ones who raised me, their peace, so I'll just find my siblings. But she stopped me and she told me that's not how consent works for closed adoptions. One moment, walking in those doors turned into 5 long years. 5 years of dead ends, silence, of trying to find my roots and my biological mother for consent. Then on February 26, 2019, I reached my breaking point from 2013. So I took matters into my own hands. It only made sense at the time. I stayed awake for 48 hours. No sleep, just tears and frustration, and just all the determination in the world. So I started searching everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, anything that might lead me to my truth. And using whatever resources I've had that my parents gave me. I got closer, I felt bolder, and then I sent a random message to a random girl on Facebook who I thought was my sister. And you never think that you're gonna send messages like this. Hey, you look like me. This sounds weird, but I was adopted, and I'm wondering if you are too. Then, not even 5 minutes later, I get a response. And that one moment changed my whole life. My sisters and my brothers reunited 1 month earlier from that message, and we were all reunited by that same night. And then I learned the real truth. My biological mother was homeless, living in a tent, moving from uptown, downtown Charlotte for over 20 years, consumed by the grief of losing her children to a system. 7 children scattered across the city. So my social worker was right. My mother wasn't ready, and not because she didn't care, because her mental health remains untreated. Case plans left undone, termination of rights completed by the courts. See, when I hear adoption, I don't assume my mother wasn't willing. But people always assume the worst about adoption. So in my line of work, when I hear stories like mine, I hear something completely different. I hear that my mother was unwell, not unwilling. And then it clicked. We don't talk about adoption. We don't talk about closed adoption, and we certainly don't talk about reunification and what that actually looks like. I remember the first time I met my siblings and that constant feeling of how do we get along and what roles do we really play in each other's lives now? And years after years of trying with one another, if you get it wrong, we argue. It feels like siblings, but the aftermath, it is not always reconciliation. Sometimes it's just going back to what we call associates, or taking my biological mother out on errands or a birthday dinner, and then the next morning you get a call. Yesterday was great, but God told me I'm not ready to be with y'all yet. And now I have to break that same news to all of my siblings, and it becomes a cycle. Mental illness revealing itself time and time again until one by one each child leaves her side because it's just actually too much to bear. So my calling through law and my career allows me to serve adoptees in this reunification journey because it can be safe and it can be healthy when we all understand how mental illness actually shows up. Enough of hearing stories told by adoptive parents, community leaders, and social workers, although they are important, but this is our story, by us and through us. And sometimes we're just stronger than what we think. It can be draining, it can be heartbreaking, but it is a process. And this is my process, and it's still healing. My name is Meeka Clark, the reunified adoptee, and this is my brave. Thank you. And next, I get the opportunity to bring the next brave storyteller to the stage, Miss Shara Clark.
Before I became pregnant at 17, I was vibrant, full of life, carefree, the kind of carefree you earn after surviving things you were never supposed to survive. I grew up around chaos, domestic violence, alcohol, drugs, all the things that lived in the house when my mom and dad were together. My mama still gave me and my sister a good life. We had love, laughter, and light. Still, some shadows followed me. I remember being 13, crushing on a boy that lived in a neighborhood older than me. One day I stayed home, I let him in, and what felt innocent turned into something I didn't have words for yet. Something that left me scarred, ashamed, and silent. I didn't tell my sister. I didn't tell my mama. I blame myself for staying home, for trusting, for everything. So I carried it alone. Years later, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know how to be somebody's mama. I just knew I wanted to be a good one. I just knew I wanted to be the best mama. I struggled quietly again, jealous of the love my daughter was getting from my family. Because in my mind, I thought she took their love from me. I didn't know that was trauma talking. I didn't know that was postpartum whispering through unhealed wounds. In my 20s, I met who I thought was the love of my life. I started drifting from my responsibilities of being a mother. My family stepped in heavy, and I let them. I told myself she was safe. I told myself, I'm still young. I told myself, I'm still living my best life. But what I thought was love turned into isolation, control, beatings, silence. Sometimes he was gentle. Other times I was locked in a house with drawn curtains, hung over, numb, barely myself. There were things he did back then I didn't even have language for. He kept me high, he kept me drunk, and he kept me quiet. And I did what I knew best at that time. I survived. The party never stopped, neither did the spiral. I wasn't showing up as a mom. I wasn't showing up for myself. I was just showing up to get through. There were nights I wanted to disappear. Nights I thought about ending everything. But deep down, I knew something. This house of cards wasn't built to last. After years in that cycle, I started connecting the dots. My childhood, my silence, my pain, my choices. And I realized something that shook me. I wanted my daughter back. I just didn't know how. And I'm sorry to tell you, it wasn't an overnight miracle. And it wasn't no movie ending. It took tries after tries, cries after cries, pain after pain, shame after shame. But one day I made a decision, and I make it every day I wake up. I choose recovery. Today, I stand here on my healing journey, letting go of guilt, learning forgiveness, forgiving myself for the pain I caused myself, my daughter, and the people that love me most. Today, I'm grateful. Grateful for my daughter. Grateful for my grandchildren. Grateful for recovery, therapy, community, and prayer. Because what was once broken in me is now being made whole. My name is Shara, and this is My Brave. I would like to welcome to the stage our next brave storyteller, Melody C. Gross.
I didn't set out to be a victim. No one ever really does. Growing up, I had some insecurities, but not enough for me to experience the type of abuse that I would from men, or so I thought. On March 12, 2016, I walked out of my apartment not knowing that the argument that I had with my then boyfriend would change my life. We had been arguing and going back and forth about his portion of the bills. This was a recurring theme. And as I sat waiting for my son to finish his acting classes, I finally answered one of his calls, and he said, "You're going to jail." He had pressed assault charges against me. After that, I would be constantly harassed with text, calls, and emails. I had to sit across mediators with the same person the year before who had picked me up, thrown me to the floor, and caused me to sprain my ankle and use crutches. The same one who would put his knee in my chest to hold me down. And the same one when I tried to get a restraining order after being stalked, the judge said that I was mad that he broke up with me. But I was triumphant. The charges were dropped and the stalking stopped. And after nearly 3 years, it was over. Afterwards, I found myself being called to tell my story. And I built a successful career as a speaker, workplace trainer, consultant, and advocate. I would work with domestic violence and agencies and coalitions across the country. I would work with survivors through legislation, programs, funding, and coaching. I did it all, and I loved every minute of it. I'm not a victim anymore, y'all. Or so I thought. See, this one was different. It looked different, it felt different, it even appeared different, but it was still abuse. There was the psychological abuse of telling me he's my best friend, we're getting married, looking at engagement rings and places to live with my son, but also telling me I didn't make enough money. And then it was the manipulation and lies to get me to do what he needed me to do. Then there was the financial abuse, where at a time I was making more money, and so I could have paid for our household, mine and his. That's rent, vehicle payments, car notes, any kind of thing that was needed, I was there because I'm in partnership, right? Or at least I thought I was. Behind my back, he was planting seeds of my mental instability, telling people that he was never getting married, living with a woman, and that he was single, and even trying to sleep with women that I knew. It had been 4.5 years, and we weren't moving forward. And even as I would ask him, did he want out? And he said no, but I did. And so I left, and I ended it. And much like the first person, he would make my life a living hell. Post-separation abuse is challenging. There was the negative talks about me, there was the lies, there was finding out he was cheating. There was also the cease and desist letters and trying to stop my financial livelihood. This was all occurring while I was writing 2 books. One about for survivors navigating life after abuse, and the other one about how those in the circle can support survivors. What I realized is that I was living those books in real time. There was shame around all of this because how could I do this work of disrupting domestic violence when I couldn't even see it in my own relationship. It was therapy and speaking to counselors and the hotline that made me realize that what I had experienced was abuse. Again, it looked different, but it was still abuse. But as I realized that I needed something more, and so each day and each moment, I was fighting for my life. It became overwhelming. And there were times that I did not want to wake up. I did not want to be here. I wanted to end it. I wanted to end me. But something told me to keep pushing, keep going. And so I needed to reframe, retrain, and reimagine my new life. I needed to love myself more. I needed to rediscover who I am and who I wanted to be. Because I didn't want to just be a victim. I wanted to be someone who lived a life. I wanted to be bolder, more unapologetic. And that's what I did. Each and every moment. Not a day, a moment. Because sometimes that's all I needed, was the next moment. And so I'm here today because of those moments. I am free, and I am loved, and I am Melody, and this is my brave. Please welcome the next brave storyteller, Kendrick.
I should have died 6 times. Heart attacks, a stroke, heart failure, kidney failure, and yet I'm still here. Today I want to tell you what happens when life reminds you that every day is a borrowed time. Let me take you back. I was 16 years old, getting physical for wrestling. 6'2", 190 pounds, looking like I'll be sure. The doctor said, you have high blood pressure. I said, whatever, I was young, I worked out, I felt fine, no big deal. But life has a way of collecting small warnings until one day they aren't small anymore. Fast forward, I'm 28 years old, still 6'2", but now I'm about 300 pounds. Married, a child, happy. Then the doctor said, you have diabetes. At first, it's just a pill. Then comes insulin. Life keeps moving. At 40, everything changed. The room started spinning. I tried to speak. Nothing would come out of my mouth. I knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. That day, I had a TIA, a warning stroke. But for me, it was just the beginning of the storm, because after that, the damage caught up. 3 heart attacks, 4 stents, then heart failure, then kidney failure, and I'm on dialysis now. 3 days a week, 4 hours at a time, watching my blood leave my body and come back just so I can stay alive. Then they implanted a defibrillator in my chest, a device designed to shock my heart if it stops. And it did, 3 times. Woke up on the kitchen floor, woke up in my stairwell, woke up in my bed. 3 violent reminders that life is fragile. Then the words that changed everything. You're going to be placed on the transplant list. A heart and a kidney, double transplant. That means living between hope and uncertainty. Because the call that could save my life comes from someone else losing theirs. That really changes you. Titles don't matter. Deadlines don't matter. Money doesn't matter. What matters becomes simple: time, family, faith, and the decision to keep fighting. There were nights I asked, why me? But then I heard my mother's voice. I cried because I had no shoes till I saw a man without any feet. She taught me perspective and a poem that she used to tell me all the time. It was Invictus. And I thank my God for my unconquerable soul. Somewhere along the way, something shifted. I stopped asking why me and started asking why not me? And then a better question, what am I going to do with the time I do have? Because when you've been shocked back to life, when your weeks revolve around survival, you learn something most people forget. Every day is borrowed time. And borrowed time is powerful. It sharpens your focus. It deepens your gratitude. It eliminates excuses. You don't need a hospital room to reset your priorities. You don't need dialysis to appreciate your strengths. You don't need a defibrillator to decide that today matters. Whatever you're facing right now, you are stronger than you know. Your plans may change, your timeline may shift, but you are not finished. I'm not here because I avoided the storm. I'm here because I'm still standing in the storm. And as long as there's breath in my life, in my lungs, and there's a beat in my heart, I am still building, I'm still fighting, I'm still rising. And if my borrowed time still has purpose, so does yours. So don't wait for a hospital room to decide your life matters. Start living while there's still time. Thank you. My name is Keith Kendrick, and this is my brave and my borrowed time. Let's welcome our next speaker, Lindsay Raé Perry.
Growing up, people assumed that my life was perfect because on the surface, I had the most generous and loving mother. All the toys a kid could dream of. Nice restaurants on a random weekday just because. And so to their credit, my material needs were taken care of. But what most did not see is when the gifts became apologies and the sacrifices that I had to make in order to belong was me. It was painfully confusing to love a mother who was both my very best friend and my first abuser. And her triggers didn't always come with a warning. And as her only child, she trained me to be her therapist and a literal punching bag for her unhealed pain that had nowhere to go. I will never forget the first time my beautiful, beautiful 6-foot-tall, sweet mother was violent with me. I was just a little girl, and she picked me up by the collar of my shirt, dug her nails into my skin, slammed my back against the wall, and began to uppercut punch me in the stomach, while silently whispering, "You fat, ugly ass bitch. Don't embarrass me in front of my mother effing sister." The punches took my breath away, and it came out of nowhere. I walked out of that room immediately after with a forced smile and a trip to Chuck E. Cheese like nothing ever happened. I felt like it didn't matter if I lived or died in that moment because that was the day that I lost my mother to a rage that I could not predict. And I would spend a lifetime chasing and grieving after the mother I once knew before depression stole her from me. And when she drifted, I had to learn ways to keep myself safe from dangers that she refused to see. Like when I would hide butcher knives in my teddy bear to protect myself from my sex-crazed stepbrother. And since I wasn't safe in my own home, I used to romanticize being rescued by my father. I went from being a daddy's girl to him slamming the door in my face when I showed up to his home and he told me never to come back for the first time because I missed the bus at school. I was 12 years old when I realized that I was a hidden love child. The whole walk home was devastating. That meant that every single creative daddy-daughter date were just hiding places for his shame. And I became that shame. I saw myself as disposable in every single area of my life. It's like I had a scarlet letter written on my forehead that was short for abomination. I believed that my very existence on this earth was a stain, and that belief almost ended my life. I was 7 years old when I wrote my first suicide note, and again at 15. By my mid-20s, I had become so exhausted from trying to overachieve my way out of my trauma that I broke down. I remember dropping to my knees, asking God, what is it that you want from me? And that's when I saw a vision. Every single woman in my family storming toward an open door with rage on their faces, and their mouths were wide open from screams that you could not hear. And every single time they got to the threshold of that door, it would slam in their faces. And then I saw myself with the same look, going toward the same door. And I knew that if I wanted to cross that threshold and see what was on the other side of that door, that the generational vow to suffer in silence would have to end with me. I needed help. And while my silent rage was valid for my survival, it was no longer needed for where God was taking me. And so I had to have brutally honest conversations with people that I loved. I had to give myself permission to speak my truth. I stand here before you today not as a broken little girl, but as a highly resourced woman who no longer allows for secrets to keep my heart diseased. And never again will I dim my light to appease those who are in covenant with their own wounds. I consistently invest in therapy. I am a first-generation college graduate in my immediate family. I get to wake up to an amazing husband and a beautiful son who love me intentionally every single day. Because I deserve to experience a life where I am seen, I am heard, I am honored, and I am enough. And so do you. My name is Lindsay Raé Perry, and this is My Brave.